We can map the surface of Mars, but not the bottom of our own oceans. Down there, beneath miles of crushing darkness, lies a world we've barely touched. A place where sunlight never reaches, and where something may already be watching us. For decades, we've searched the skies for answers, chasing lights that vanish into the clouds. But what if we've been looking in the wrong direction all along? What if the visitors were never above us, but beneath? More than 80% of our seafloor remains unexplored. Entire mountain ranges, trenches deeper than Everest, and valleys that no human eye has ever seen. If an intelligence wanted to hide, to build, to observe, the ocean would be the perfect cover. It absorbs all light, all sound, all trace of movement. Anything that descends into that darkness can vanish completely from human sight. And for years, strange things have been happening down there. Naval sonars detect objects moving faster than any submarine. Fishermen see glowing shapes drifting silently beneath their boats. And sometimes, a deep vibration hums through the water. Rhythmic, alive, almost like a heartbeat. No one knows what it means. No one knows where it comes from. But those who've heard it say, it changes something in the air, like the ocean itself is whispering. We used to think space was the final frontier. Maybe we were wrong. Maybe the real mystery isn't out there. It's right here, below us, waiting. And tonight, we go looking for it. Chapter 1. The First Signal. It started on a night when the sea was perfectly still. No wind, no waves, only silence. The Pacific stretched endlessly under the stars, dark, heavy, and infinite. At the edge of Chile's coast, inside a deep-sea monitoring station, a young oceanographer named Ana Torres sat alone in front of a glowing screen. She was used to listening to the quiet hum of the ocean, but that night, something new arrived. Soft at first, a pulse, distant and low. It rolled through the seafloor, like a heartbeat echoing through stone. She froze. Every 93 seconds, the same tone returned. Perfectly measured, perfectly consistent. No earthquake, no storm, no submarine could make a sound that precise. Ana leaned closer. The pattern looked alive. For hours she recorded it, listening as the pulse grew stronger, as if something beneath the ocean had become aware of her listening. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The next morning, she filed a report. By evening, the Navy arrived. Her data was sealed, her hard drives replaced, and Ana Torres was never seen in public again. But the signal didn't stop. It only moved. Thousands of miles away, near Japan, a fleet of fishing vessels reported glowing shapes beneath the surface. They moved in formation, silent, circular, blue-white lights spinning slowly in the dark water. At first, the fishermen thought it was plankton, but plankton doesn't form perfect triangles, and it doesn't follow ships for hours. One crew shut off their engines to watch. The lights grew brighter, rising toward them until the water began to vibrate. A humming tone filled the air, the same rhythm Ana had heard. The men screamed, the sea exploded in light, and then it was gone. The next morning, they told their story on local radio. By sunset, the broadcast had vanished from the station's archives. Officials denied the interview ever existed, but rumors began to spread. In Norway, submarine crews detected metallic objects moving faster than sound beneath the fjords. In the Caribbean, sonar picked up vertical motion, something rising from 10,000 feet to the surface in less than a second. No machine on Earth could survive that acceleration. Scientists dismissed it as equipment error, but inside secure military facilities, the same pattern kept appearing: a pulse. Every 93 seconds, it traveled from ocean to ocean, as if circling the planet. Then, one night, the United States Navy captured a recording unlike anything before. 2 pulses. They weren't random. A classified briefing was held in Virginia. A large screen displayed a sonar map, ripples spreading outward from 2 deep points. A scientist pressed play. The room filled with a slow, resonant hum. Then another tone responded, lower, distant, and unmistakably intelligent. "This," the scientist said quietly, "is not geological. It's not mechanical. It's communication. No one spoke for several seconds. Then a commander asked, "Between what?" Weeks later, surveillance satellites caught strange distortions in the Pacific, near the Mariana Trench. Something enormous was moving below, bending the ocean around it. Divers sent to investigate returned with corrupted footage. Fragments showed streaks of light, spirals of bubbles, and a faint metallic glimmer disappearing into darkness. They described a vibration so deep it made their bones ache. Two of them refused to dive again. By now, the pulse had become an obsession among oceanographers. Teka. Itit. The first signal. Some believed it was a geological phenomenon. Others whispered that it was something ancient, not new at all, but waking up after centuries of silence. One unconfirmed report spoke of a ruined structure found deep under the Pacific Shelf, columns arranged in a perfect circle, covered in carvings that no one could translate. When they placed the sensor inside, the pulse grew stronger, almost angry. The team removed the device. The next day, the entire area was struck by an undersea quake, though no tectonic movement had been recorded. It was as if something had reacted. Across the world, people began to hear the hum in unexpected places, through ship radios, underwater microphones, even in coastal power lines. Always the same interval. A deep-sea biologist in Iceland noticed a strange behavior in whales. Pods were migrating to areas that matched the pulse's route, as if following a signal older than memory itself. When she played the sound back to them through underwater speakers, they responded with fear. They fled. The United Nations issued no statement, but in private, global militaries began deploying deep drone scouts and autonomous submersibles into the deepest trenches on Earth. Most returned with nothing. One drone, callsign Abyss 4, transmitted a single image before vanishing. It showed a faint light far below, spherical and metallic, reflecting the drone's own beam. Its surface shimmered like liquid steel, and then the signal cut off. For the first time, the world's most powerful institutions realized something terrifying. We weren't just detecting the ocean. The ocean was detecting us. Something intelligent, hidden far below, was listening, learning, responding. And as the pulse echoed across the planet, one truth began to rise like a tide. Maybe the visitors we've been waiting for never came from the stars at all. Maybe they've been here all along, sleeping beneath the waves. And now, they were awake. Chapter 2. The Lost Maps of Atlantis. The signal changed everything. For the first time, the ocean wasn't just a mystery, it was a map. And someone, or something, was drawing it. Weeks after the discovery, a quiet team of researchers gathered inside an unmarked facility near the Azores, a remote chain of volcanic islands in the Atlantic. They weren't military, though the Navy funded them. They weren't archaeologists, though they worked with ancient maps. They were something in between, a hidden branch of oceanic intelligence, dedicated to patterns that science couldn't explain. At the center of their table lay a single piece of yellowed parchment, sealed in glass. Its ink was faded, its edges torn by centuries of salt and time. It was one of the oldest surviving maps of the Atlantic, drawn long before modern instruments existed. But this map had a detail that should not have been there. A massive landmass, drawn precisely where there should only be ocean. A continent that no longer exists. The word written across it was simple: Atlantis. For centuries, Atlantis was a myth. A story told by the Greek philosopher Plato about a lost civilization swallowed by the sea. Historians said it was an allegory, a warning about arrogance and power. But this map, and others like it, told a different story. They suggested that the legend might have roots in reality. The team began cross-referencing old nautical charts with new sonar readings. To their astonishment, the coordinates of the ancient drawings matched areas where the ocean floor showed massive, unnatural structures, rectangular ridges, perfect angles, and walls buried under miles of sediment. Nature doesn't build straight lines, but civilizations do. One researcher, Dr. Marcus Bale, was the first to make the connection between the coordinates and the pulse detected by Ana Torres. Every 93 seconds, the same frequency echoed through the same coordinates marked on the ancient maps, as if the ocean itself was remembering something long lost. a city that once existed, now only whispering through sound. Late one night, Dr. Vale opened an encrypted file found on a declassified naval server. It contained sonar scans labeled Project Echo. They showed something massive resting under the Atlantic shelf, a formation shaped like concentric circles, almost identical to Plato's description of Atlantis, a central core surrounded by rings of water and land. Except this one wasn't stone, it was metallic. He zoomed in. Around the edges of the formation, faint patterns shimmered, not carvings, not erosion, but markings. Symbols. They pulsed faintly with energy, like light reflecting from deep water. When he overlaid the data with the global pulse readings, they aligned perfectly. The signal wasn't random at all. It was a transmission coming from this structure. He presented his findings to the group the next morning. Some laughed nervously. Others sat in silence. Only Dr. Vale spoke again. What if the legends weren't myths? He said quietly. What if Atlantis never sank by accident, but was sealed on purpose? No one answered. Over the following weeks, the pulse began to grow stronger. Stations across the world recorded variations. Higher frequencies layered beneath the main rhythm, like coded language. Patterns emerged that resembled digital sequences. Binary strings hidden within sound waves. The ocean was sending data. Specialized AI was brought in to decode it. The result was terrifyingly elegant, a map of the Earth, as seen not from above, but from below. It showed tunnels connecting deep ocean trenches, vast hollow regions beneath continental shelves, and what appeared to be enormous chambers carved into the bedrock of the planet itself. Hidden CTAs connected by corridors of black water. One name appeared again and again in the decoded fragments. Aquina. No one knew what it meant, but the word appeared in Sumerian, Babylonian, and even early Mayan myths. It always described the same thing. The realm below the sea, where the light of the stars is trapped. The deeper the researchers went, the stranger the coincidences became. Ancient carvings from Egypt showed beings rising from the ocean, holding spheres that glowed. Mayan temples depicted gods descending into water to return to the stars. In Norse sagas, Aegir, the god of the sea, ruled from a shining hall beneath the waves. And in every culture, there was one repeated theme: light beneath the sea, and knowledge that came from it. Dr. Vale started to suspect that these weren't coincidences at all. They were memories, ancient accounts of encounters humanity once had with something deep below. Civilizations erased by time, leaving only stories disguised as myths. One night, while the rest of the team slept, Vale accessed a naval communication link. He wasn't supposed to. He ran the pulse pattern through a spectral analyzer and converted the frequencies into visible light. What he saw took his breath away. The signal formed symbols, the same ones etched on the structure under the ocean. They weren't random. They looked like a language. An alphabet not made by humans. He printed the images, spread them across his desk, and realized something horrifying. Each symbol matched an ancient rune or glyph from civilizations that had never met. Norse, Egyptian, Sumerian, Polynesian, as if all of them had been taught the same writing by the same source. By morning, Vale disappeared. His apartment was empty. His research erased. The rest of the team was reassigned without explanation. But before he vanished, he left one file on an encrypted drive, titled simply The Lost Maps. Inside were coordinates leading to the edge of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and a message. If you go there, listen for the heartbeat. It's not just the ocean calling back. It's the memory of something that was never meant to die. 2 months later, a private exploration vessel called the Ian set sail from Portugal, led by an independent filmmaker and a group of ocean explorers who had somehow obtained Vale's coordinates. They descended into the darkness, with submersibles equipped with high-resolution cameras and sonar. At 9,200 meters, the seafloor came into view, a vast, circular structure rising from the sediment. Columns half buried in sand, walls coated with coral that shimmered like metal under the lights, and at the center, a hollow shaft descending even deeper, glowing faintly blue. When they lowered the microphone into the shaft, the pulse was deafening. The same rhythm, the same 93 seconds. But this time, It wasn't just sound. There was a voice inside it, layered, distant, like something whispering through miles of water. The crew panicked. Their instruments flickered. One by one, the cameras failed. Before the feed cut off completely, the last thing they saw was light rising from the shaft, twisting upward like a beam reaching for the surface. The ship's final transmission was a single line of text. "It's not ruins, it's awakening." Hours later, the Ian vanished from radar.no. Debris was found. Only the ocean.com as ever, holding its secrets tight. And in the darkness of the Atlantic, the pulse continued louder than before. Measured, rhythmic, alive. Somewhere in that deep silence, the memory of Atlantis still breathed. Not a myth, not a dream, a message from the first civilization that ever walked the earth, waiting to rise again. Chapter 3. The awakening beneath the ocean was calm that night. Flat-ass glass, dark-ass space, a few scattered stars reflected on its surface like distant eyes watching from above. Commander Ellis stood on the deck of the research vessel Orpheus, her gaze locked on the endless horizon. They had been adrift for hours, waiting for the signal to return the same rhythmic pulse that had appeared on sonar 3 nights earlier. A sound so deep and resonant it made the metal hull vibrate like a living heart. At first, the crew thought it was a malfunction, but then it repeated, a steady, timed frequency. Not random, not natural, almost like language. Ellis tightened her grip on the railing. She wasn't here to chase myths. She was here because the Navy's classified files mentioned something they had buried decades ago. A pattern that matched the same frequency, now echoing from the depths. Dr. Voss, the expedition's acoustic engineer, appeared beside her, holding a headset. "It's getting stronger," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "It's moving." "Up." Ellis turned sharply. "Up," he nodded. "The source isn't stationary anymore. It's ascending. Slowly." A chill rippled through the air. Beneath them, the black water shimmered as if lit from within. The crew gathered silently at the edge of the ship, eyes wide, breath caught between awe and fear. Then the sound came again, a low, thunderous hum that didn't just echo. It vibrated through their bones. Cups rattled in the galley. Instruments flickered. Even the compass needles spun uselessly in circles. "Record everything," Ellis ordered. But even as she spoke, the monitors began to fail one by one, like something below was swallowing their signal. The light beneath the ship grew brighter, swirling into slow, circular patterns. It wasn't fire. It wasn't bioluminescence. It looked designed, Dr. Voss whispered. "If that's a creature, it's the largest thing on Earth." Ellis didn't respond. She couldn't. Her instincts screamed that what they were seeing wasn't alive in the way they understood. The sound shifted pitch, forming what felt like layers of rhythm as if multiple sources were communicating. For a moment, the light dimmed, and then a single, focused beam shot upward, slicing through the surface and into the night sky. The beam was silent, yet every piece of metal on the ship hummed in harmony. The crew fell still, mesmerized, as if the ocean itself had awakened. Somewhere in the dark, beneath miles of water, something ancient had turned its gaze upward. The light faded as quickly as it had come, leaving nothing but ripples and a faint electric smell in the air. Ellis looked around. No one spoke. Every camera, every sensor, every recording device had shut down. Whatever had happened, the ocean didn't want witnesses. Hours later, when the systems finally rebooted, all digital data was gone, erased, as if overridden by something beyond human technology. Only one trace remained. An audio distortion burned into the sonar's memory. When slowed down, the waveform formed a pattern. 3 perfect circles intertwined. Dr. Voss stared at the image, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've seen this before," he said, "in the old Navy archives. It was marked as classified under Operation Abyss." Ellis turned to him slowly. "Operation Abyss? That file was sealed in the 70s. He nodded, "and it was sealed because they found something down there, something they couldn't explain. Outside, the sea was calm again, as if nothing had happened. But deep beneath them, in the cold silence of the trench, the hum began once more, faint, deliberate, alive. The ocean had spoken, and now it was waiting for an answer. Chapter 4. The Abyssco, the ocean had gone silent. 4 hours. The crew of the Orpheus drifted in that unnatural calm, haunted by what they had just witnessed. Even the seabirds were gone. The air was heavy, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Commander Ellis stood in the control room, staring at the sonar monitor. Its screen glowed faintly, showing only static. No signals, no movement, but she knew it was still there, somewhere beneath them, hidden in the deep. Dr. Voss sat across from her, replaying the fragment of distorted audio again and again. Each time, the same shape appeared on the waveform. 3 perfect circles intertwined. No one could explain it. Not even the AI signal processor could match it to any known marine pattern. "What do you think it means?" Ellis finally asked. Voss looked up, his expression pale. "I don't think it's a random code," he said. "I think it's a message." He enlarged the pattern on the screen and traced the circles with his finger. 3 rings, each intersecting the other. This isn't chaos. It's geometry designed. Ellis frowned. Could it be a signature? A kind of identification? Maybe, Voss said quietly. Or maybe it's a lock, waiting for someone who knows how to open it. He turned to another monitor and pulled up archived data from the Navy's old Operation Abyss files. The ones that had been declassified just months ago. The first entry was dated 1973. A deep-sea probe had gone missing in the Mariana Trench after recording a similar frequency. The report mentioned a resonance anomaly and a strange electromagnetic pulse that destroyed the probe's circuitry. No one ever retrieved it. Ellis leaned closer to the screen. The same pattern. Identical, Voss said. And according to this file, they found traces of a metallic structure more than 6 miles below the surface. Something artificial. They called it the grid. A sudden thud echoed through the ship. Everyone froze. Another came. Heavier. Closer. It sounded like something brushing against the hull. Ellis grabbed the intercom. "Bridge, what's happening down there?" The response crackled through static. "Mom, you need to see this." She and Voss rushed to the observation deck. The water below was glowing again, not white this time, but a soft, pulsating blue. It spread out like veins beneath the surface, stretching for miles. And at the center of it all, a perfect circle of light rotated slowly, matching the pattern from the sonar recording. "Is it drawing power?" Ellis whispered. "No," Voss said, voice trembling. "It's broadcasting." The ship's radio systems began to flicker, filling the air with static and fragments of voices. Hundreds of them, overlapping. Snippets of human language, reversed, distorted, as if repeating transmissions from the past. And beneath them all was that same steady hum, deep, resonant. Alive. Ellis turned to her crew. "Record everything. No one says a word until we know what this is." But just as she spoke, the ship's power cut out completely. Darkness swallowed them whole. Only the ocean's light remained, glowing through the portholes like a heartbeat. Voss switched on a handheld recorder. "The pattern," he said softly. "It's reacting to us, to our presence." A low vibration rattled through the ship, so deep it felt like the sound was inside their bones. Then, from the center of the glowing circle, something began to rise. Not a creature, not a submarine. Something vast, symmetrical, smooth. A structure made of black metal that shimmered as if alive. It rose silently, displacing thousands of tons of water without a single wave. The crew could only stare as the upper surface broke through, revealing a dome larger than the ship itself. Symbols glowed faintly across its surface. The same pattern of 3 circles, now rotating like gears. Ellis whispered. "It's responding to the signal." Voss nodded slowly. "It's opening. The dome split down the middle with a sound like cracking ice. Inside was darkness, and from that darkness, a light pulsed, slow, rhythmic, almost breathing. For a moment, Ellis felt an overwhelming sensation, like being watched by something ancient and intelligent. "Dr. Voss," she said quietly, "how deep are we over this trench?" 36,000 feet, he replied. "But whatever this is, it wasn't built by us." The light grew brighter until the entire deck was bathed in blue. The crew shielded their eyes. When the glow faded, the dome had closed again, and the structure was sinking back into the abyss. The sea went still once more. The power returned to the ship with a sudden surge. Monitors rebooted. Lights flickered. Ellis rushed back to the control room. On the sonar, the object's position was gone, erased completely, as if it had never existed. But in the corner of the screen, new data appeared, a transmission feed that no one had activated, a repeating set of coordinates. Voss read them aloud, his voice shaking. "These are not oceanic coordinates. They point inland." Ellis leaned closer. "Where?" He stared at the map. "Antarctica." A long silence filled the room. The hum had stopped. Only the faint creak of the ship remained. Ellis finally spoke. "Get the team ready. We're going south." Outside, far beneath the waves, the pattern of light flickered one last time. 3 circles intertwined, before fading into the darkness. The ocean had sent its message, and somewhere on the frozen edge of the world, the next chapter of that message was waiting to be heard. The air over the southern ocean was sharp and colorless. The Orpheus moved through walls of mist, its hull coated in ice, heading farther south than any civilian vessel was meant to go. The crew barely spoke now. The excitement of discovery had turned into something heavier, a quiet fear that whatever waited ahead had been calling them all along. Commander Ellis stood inside the navigation dome, watching the horizon vanish behind sheets of fog. Every compass on board had failed 2 days ago. Only the coordinates from the strange transmission guided them, repeating endlessly in the ship system like a whisper they couldn't shut off. Dr. Voss sat beside a stack of printed data, his eyes red from lack of sleep. He had been decoding the new audio that came with the signal. Not noise this time, but structure. When the sound was slowed down, it formed complex mathematical ratios, identical to the harmonic frequencies of planetary orbits. It was as if someone, or something, had built a message, using the language of the universe itself. "It's not just coordinates," Voss said softly. "It's a map, but not of the surface. It's showing something beneath the ice." Ellis turned to him. "You mean under Antarctica?" He nodded. "Miles below. A geometric void. Perfectly symmetrical. No natural formation looks like that." As they approached the polar circle, the signal began to grow louder again. Deep, rhythmic, pulsing through the hull. The same resonance that had once made the ocean shake now vibrated through the ice air itself. It was no longer coming from beneath them. It was coming ahead. The ship's radar flared suddenly, showing a massive distortion moving through the blizzard. For a moment, it looked like a mountain, then like a wall of light. Then it disappeared completely. The crew exchanged terrified looks. Ellis gripped the railing. "Hold course. We finished this." Hours later, the Orpheus reached a bay of frozen cliffs. The sea around it was unnaturally still, smooth as a mirror. They dropped anchor, and Ellis led a small team onto the ice. The silence there was absolute. No wind, no cracking, no sound of life. Only the low hum of the signal echoing faintly through their suits. It was guiding them toward something. Half a mile inland, the ice rose into a curved ridge, and at its center, buried beneath layers of frost, a black surface gleamed. Voss knelt beside it, brushing away snow. The material was the same as the dome they'd seen rise from the ocean. Dark metal, smooth and warm to the touch despite the freezing air. Symbols ran across it, glowing faintly through the frost. 3 circles intertwined, pulsing in perfect rhythm with the signal. "This is impossible," he whispered. "It's the same structure, the same design. But this one, it's older." Ellis placed her gloved hand on the metal. The glow intensified. A tone reverberated through the ice, low and resonant, spreading in every direction. Then the ground trembled, the snow around them cracked and sank, revealing more of the structure. A massive circular platform buried in the glacier. "Step back," Ellis shouted. The team stumbled away as the platform began to rotate, slowly, like a giant lock turning in place. Lines of light spread outward in a spiral pattern, connecting across the ice like circuitry. The sky above flickered, not with lightning, but with movement. Something vast stirred behind the clouds. The signal peaked, and suddenly there comes, filled with voices again. Fragments of words and dozens of languages, overlapping. Voss's recorder went wild, catching every tone and frequency. Then, within the static, a single clear phrase emerged, spoken in perfect English. The cycle returns. The sound faded. The lights dimmed. And just as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The platform sealed itself again beneath the ice, leaving only silence and the faint smell of ozone in the air. Ellis and Voss stood motionless. "What does it mean?" she asked. Voss stared at the scanner. "It means whatever built this wasn't destroyed. It's sleeping, and now something has awakened it." They returned to the Orpheus in near total silence. From the bridge, Ellis watched the frozen horizon, her breath fogging the glass. In the distance, a faint beam of blue light pierced through the storm clouds and vanished into the stars. That night, as the ship drifted quietly under the southern lights, the crew dreamed of water, endless, deep, full of shapes that watched them from below. And when they woke, every clock on board showed the same strange anomaly. Time had frozen for exactly 7 minutes and 32 seconds. Dr. Voss said nothing. He simply stared at the screen, where the symbol of 3 circles was now joined by a 4th pulsing slowly, like a heartbeat from the other side of the world. The ocean stretched endlessly under a sky of silent stars. The storm that had haunted the Orpheus for days had finally gone, leaving behind a strange, calm stillness that felt wrong somehow. The waves no longer roared, they whispered. The crew moved about the deck quietly, as if afraid to disturb something they couldn't see. Inside the control room, the glow of broken monitors painted the walls in shades of cold blue. Dr. Voss sat motionless in front of the main console, hair, face half lit. By the flickering screen, the same image repeated again and again, for glowing circles suspended in blackness. They weren't symbols, they were coordinates. No one could explain why. Moments after the signal vanished, the ship's systems had rebooted and displayed the 4th circle. For weeks, they had tracked three unknown energy signatures hidden beneath the Antarctic ice. But now there was a 4th, larger, deeper, and moving. Commander Ellis stood near the doorway, his hands buried in his coat pockets. "It's following us," he said quietly. Dr. Voss didn't turn to look at him. The signal stopped. Stopped doesn't mean gone. The air around them hummed softly, like a power line vibrating in the distance. The sound wasn't coming from the ship's engines. It was coming from the metal walls themselves, a deep, rhythmic tone that seemed alive. "Listen," Ellis whispered. The hum changed pitch, forming a pattern. 3 pulses, then 4. Over and over again. "It's answering us," Voss said under her breath. The captain's voice came over the intercom, sharp with fatigue. "Bridge to Dr. Voss. We're reading movement under the Iska. Could be a thermal shift. You should see this." Voss and Ellis hurried up to the deck, their breath freezing in the air. The horizon was a silver line of ice and mist. Beneath the ship, the sea was unnaturally still. No waves, no motion. Yet the radar showed something enormous, moving directly beneath them, matching their speed exactly. "Is it a current?" a crewman asked. "No," Voss replied. "Currents don't mimic a vessel." The crew leaned over the railings, staring into the black water. A faint glow shimmered below, not the reflection of the stars, but something deeper, shifting like liquid light. "Jesus," Ellis muttered. "It's right under us." The glow grew brighter, forming a circular shape beneath the hull. Then another appeared beside it. Then another. Within seconds, there were 4 circles, perfectly aligned, the same pattern they'd seen on the screens. Suddenly, the temperature dropped. Frost spread across the railings. The air itself began to hum. The 4th circle pulsed once, sending a ripple across the ocean's surface. Every compass on board spun wildly. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed, then died in the same breath. "Kill the engines," the captain ordered, but the controls no longer responded. The Orpheus wasn't moving. It was being held. Dr. Voss grabbed the edge of the console as the deck trembled. The 4th circle expanded, swallowing the others, until the entire ship floated inside a ring of luminous blue. And then, a sound emerged, a voice, low and resonant, vibrating not through the air but through the bones of every living thing aboard. "You opened it?" the voice said. The words weren't spoken, they were felt. Each person on the ship heard it differently, in their own language, in their own thoughts. For one crewman, it sounded like his mother's voice. For another, it was the cry of a child. For Voss, it was like hearing herself speak from a dream. "What do you mean?" she whispered. "Opened." What? There was no answer, only the rhythmic pulse of the circles below. The ship began to rotate slowly, not by wind or current, but as if drawn into alignment with something unseen. "Doctor," Ellis said, pointing toward the horizon. "Luke," far away, in the direction of the ice shelf they had left behind, faint beams of blue light were rising from the sea. 3 pillars forming a triangle, and then the 4th circle above them flared like a miniature sun. The beams connected, forming a vast geometric grid that stretched across the sky. "It's a map," Voss murmured. The hum deepened. A sound like thunder rolled through the depths. Though the sea remained calm, the water below began to clear, and for the first time, they saw what was underneath. Not rock, not ice. Structures. Massive, angular, and ancient. Towers of black stone, covered in strange symbols. The city below them was asleep, but not dead. As the 4th circle pulsed again, the towers lit up one by one, glowing faintly with the same blue light. Voss stepped closer to the railing, her breath trembling. "It's not a signal," she said. "It's a key." The light from below intensified until it pierced the clouds, casting the entire ship in a surreal glow. Crew members covered their eyes. Some prayed, some just stared, unable to look away. The hum reached its peak. And then, silence. The light vanished. The sky returned to black. The sea was dark once more. The ship floated motionless, surrounded by emptiness. The compasses stilled. The screens went blank. Everything seemed normal again, except it wasn't. When Dr. Voss reopened the main monitor, the pattern had changed. The 4 circles were gone, replaced by a single new symbol, one that none of them recognized. It looked almost like an eye. Ellis leaned in. "What is that?" Voss didn't answer. She was already recording her notes. "It's watching," she whispered. "The signal isn't gone. It's inside the ship now." Down in the engine room, one of the technicians screamed. The others rushed to find him standing frozen beside the reactor panel, staring at the metal surface. Etched into the steel were 4 perfect circles, still glowing faintly blue. Dr. Voss's final log entry that night was short. She didn't explain the phenomena. She didn't mention the voice. Only one sentence appeared on the recovered recording. "It's not from the stars. It's from beneath us." Outside, the wind howled softly over the frozen water. But beneath the ice, something enormous began to stir, a slow, deliberate movement, like the turning of an ancient machine, finally waking after millennia of silence. The ocean had turned black again. The lights on the Orpheus flickered weakly, their power drained by something unseen. The crew spoke little now. Some refused to leave their cabins. Others stared for hours into the dark water, as if hypnotized by what they thought they saw there. Faint flashes, slow-moving shapes beneath the waves, like shadows remembering how to move. Dr. Voss hadn't slept in days. Her logbooks were filled with notes, equations, sketches of the 4 circles. She had started to draw them without realizing, over and over again, on napkins, walls, even her skin. When she tried to stop, her hand kept twitching, as if something deeper wanted to remember. Commander Ellis watched her from the control deck. He was exhausted too, though he hid it better. The ship's radio had gone dead, the satellite links cut off, and their GPS refused to stabilize. The Orpheus was adrift in an ocean that suddenly felt infinite. No signals, no stars, no time. At precisely 2:14 a.m., the M returned. It was faint at first, a pulse beneath the metal floor, like a heartbeat too deep to be human. Tenets spread, filling the corridors, vibrating through the glass panels and the steel walls. The crew froze. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Voss opened the monitoring station. "It's the same frequency," she whispered. "The same one from the fourth circle." Ellis leaned over her shoulder. "But the circles are gone." "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe they're inside us now." A light flickered on the radar. One small dot. Far below the surface. The signal was weak, but constant, pulsing every 6 seconds. "That's it," Voss said. "It's still calling." Ellis shook his head. "We're not going down there. We barely survived the last encounter." But the voice of the ocean had other plans. Without warning, the engines started themselves. Every switch on the panel flipped in perfect rhythm, like invisible hands were setting coordinates. The Orpheus began to move not forward, but down. The crew ran to the decks as the ship tilted slightly, the bow dipping into the dark. "Cut power," Ellis shouted, but the controls ignored him. The ship sank slowly, surrounded by darkness. Only the hum remained, now steady, almost calm, as if guiding them. The deeper they went, the more the light faded. At 200 meters, the last rays of the moon vanished. At 500, even the glow of the gauges dimmed. And yet, the signal grew stronger. "Depth reading?" Voss asked. 700 meters, replied a trembling voice, and still descending. Then the water outside began to glow, faint at first, then brighter, a soft blue radiance rippling across the hull. The crew pressed their faces to the windows. Outside, the darkness had transformed into a field of drifting lights. Thousands of orbs floating in slow patterns, each one pulsing in sync with the ship's hum. "They're alive," someone whispered. Voss stared. "No." "They're listening." The ship continued to descend through the glowing field. The orbs drifted aside, forming a path guiding them toward something vast and unseen. And then, through the haze, a shadow appeared. It wasn't a mountain. It wasn't a wreck. It was architecture. Smooth, impossibly large, stretching endlessly in all directions. Columns of black material rose from the seabed, curving and interlocking like a cathedral built by alien hands. The light from the orbs reflected across its surface, revealing symbols identical to the circles that had haunted their screens. The Orpheus slowed. The engines fell silent, yet the ship hovered in place, suspended above a massive central dome. At its peak, a single symbol pulsed with faint blue light. "Yeah," Voss whispered. "It's waiting for us." Ellis turned toward her, voice shaking. "For us? Or for something else to wake up?" Before she could answer, the voice returned. This time, it wasn't in her head. It filled the entire ship, deep, resonant, and vast. "You followed the signal," it said. Every light flickered. The crew covered their ears, but the sound wasn't heard. It was felt. Voss shouted into the darkness. "Who are you? What is this?" The voice paused, almost as if thinking. "Memory," it said, echoed, beginning and end. The dome below them began to open, petal by petal, revealing a circular chamber filled with glowing liquid light. Streams of bubbles rose upward, but the sea around them remained perfectly still. "It's a structure," Ella said. "But it's breathing." Panels inside the dome shifted, rearranging themselves into a massive geometric pattern. Lines of light traced across its surface, forming 4 circles once again. The 4th pulsed brighter than ever before. Voss stepped closer to the viewport. "It's not a signal anymore," she said softly. It's an invitation. An invitation to what? To remember. The ship vibrated violently as a beam of light reached up from the dome, engulfing the Orpheus completely. For a split second, the world went white, and then silence. When the light faded, they were no longer underwater. The screens showed no depth readings, no coordinates, no ocean, only blackness. The crew panicked. They could still breathe, still move, but the ship floated in a void without stars. A sound began, faint and familiar whispers, layered upon whispers, forming patterns. Ellis gripped the console. Where the hell are we? Voss closed her eyes. Not where. When. The blackness outside the ship rippled. Shadows took shape. Outlines of massive structures. Towers of impossible design. Cities glowing beneath an alien sun. They watched as creatures moved across shimmering bridges. Tall, thin, luminous forms that glided rather than walked. Atlantis? Someone whispered. No, Voss replied. Hold there. The scene shifted. Explosions of light consumed the horizon. The towers fell. The sea rose. The sky darkened. And then the same 4 circles burned in the clouds, descending toward the ruins. The voice returned, softer this time. You have seen what was lost. The vision collapsed. The blackness returned. The ship jolted violently, as if something massive had struck it. Alarms screamed, and the crew clung to whatever they could grab. We're moving again, Ellis yelled. Upward, the Orpheus surged toward the surface, the hum fading with each passing second. Water pressure roared against the hull until suddenly the ship broke through. The ocean was calm again. The sky was gray. Snow fell in silence. The crew gasped, alive but shaken. Voss looked around. What's our position? No one answered. The navigation systems were still dead. Outside the window, a thin layer of frost began to spread. Not random, but forming shapes. Lines intersected. Circles appeared within seconds. The same ancient pattern re-emerged across the glass. 4 circles, glowing faintly in the morning light. Ellis stared at them. We never left, did we? Voss didn't reply. Her voice broke to a whisper. No. We just woke something up. As dawn rose over the ice, the Orpheus drifted slowly through the silent sea. Beneath them, the ocean pulsed, once deep, steady, and alive. The sea was calm, yet it felt wrong. The water around the Orpheus shimmered faintly under the pale morning light, as if the ocean itself was alive and breathing. The crew had stopped speaking altogether. They moved slowly, carefully, like people walking through a dream they weren't sure was theirs. Dr. Voss sat by the main viewport, staring into the endless gray. The frost markings, the 4 circles, still glowed faintly across the glass. They weren't reflections. The light came from within the frost itself, pulsing in perfect rhythm with the ship's faint heartbeat. Commander Ellis entered the control room quietly. His uniform was torn, his face pale. He hadn't slept since the descent. The crew's losing it, he said. Some say they still hear the hum. Others say they're seeing things in the reflection. Faces. Voss didn't turn. They're not wrong. Ellis frowned. What do you mean? She pointed toward the frost. The patterns changed during the night. Look closely. He leaned forward. Between the circles, thin lines had formed like veins, spreading outward in fractal shapes. It looked less like ice and more like circuitry. It's spreading, she said. And it's inside the glass, not on it. Like the ship itself is being rewritten. Ellis took a slow breath. We need to send a message to command. Let them know what happened. The communications array is still dead, she said softly. And if it wasn't, would you really tell them what we saw? Ellis hesitated. The memories of that glowing city beneath the waves, the alien towers, the 4 descending circles, still burned behind his eyes. Maybe it was a hallucination, he muttered. Voss finally turned to face him. You don't believe that? He didn't answer. Outside, the sea began to ripple, though there was no wind. The water moved in circular patterns, widening, aligning perfectly beneath the ship. The same 4 circles began to take form again, etched on the surface of the ocean itself, glowing faintly, synchronized with the frost on the windows. The hum returned. Not as loud this time, but deeper, smoother. It wasn't a threat. It was a presence, vast, intelligent, aware. Voss whispered, "It's awake. Whatever it is, we need to move," Ellis said, reaching for the manual override. But before his hand touched the control, the entire console came alive. Buttons glowed. Screens flickered. The autopilot engaged itself. "We're not in control," Voss said. The Orpheus began to move slowly across the sea, following an invisible path. The circles on the water shifted and rotated, leading them further north, toward open ocean and away from the last known coordinates on their map. The sky darkened as clouds gathered overhead. A thin drizzle began to fall, turning to mist that coated the deck. Static electricity crawled across the ship's railings. The air tasted metallic. "Depth sensors are fluctuating," said a voice from the intercom. "It's like the ocean floor is moving." Voss leaned closer to the monitor. The readings made no sense. The depth beneath them changed constantly, rising and falling as if the sea itself were breathing. Then the radar flashed red. "Contact. Bearing 130 degrees, someone reported. No shape. Just dot. Energy. Outside, the water bulged upward. The sea swelled in silence, parting to reveal something immense, moving beneath the surface. Not mechanical, not biological, but something in between. It moved with purpose. Slowly, deliberately. The Orpheus trembled as waves rippled outward from the rising form. Voss gripped the railing, eyes wide. "It's coming up." From the depths, a colossal shape began to emerge. At first, it looked like a mountain of water, but as it rose, patterns of light traced across its surface. Luminous circuits pulsing in blue and gold. It wasn't alive in the way they understood life. It was a construct, a vessel, a monument, perhaps both. Its surface was made of something older than metal and smoother than glass. The 4 circles burned bright upon its sides, like ancient seals reawakened. "It's one of them," Ellis whispered. "The source." The hum deepened until it became a vibration that passed through their bones. The ship's lights flickered, then stabilized brighter than before, as if drawing power from the thing rising beneath them. Then came the voice. "Calm, cold, vast. You are within the current." The crew froze. No one could tell if it came from inside their heads or from the structure below. Voss spoke first. "What are you?" The response came instantly. The memory of what was lost. The echo of what endures. She swallowed hard. "Did you build this?" "We were the builders," the voice said, "and you are the return." The water shimmered around the structure, forming perfect geometric ripples that stretched 4 miles. Above, lightning flashed, but there was no thunder. The clouds themselves seemed drawn to the energy. Ellis clenched his fists. "We're not your creation," he said. "Not creation," the voice replied. "Continuation." Voss shook her head. "Continuation of what?" A pause. Then the words came, soft and clear. "Of us." The sea erupted in light. Pillars of glowing water shot into the air, surrounding the Orpheus in a cage of radiance. The crew screamed as the deck shuddered. Inside the control room, every system came alive. Streams of alien symbols flowed across the monitors. The circles on the glass expanded outward, merging into new shapes, spirals, constellations, maps. Voss stared at the data. "It's showing coordinates," she said. Ellis leaned closer. "Coordinates to where?" To the others, the voice said. The remaining currents. Then the lights went out. For a moment, there was only the sound of water slapping the hull. Then silence. The ship floated in total darkness. The glow beneath the waves was gone. Voss turned on her flashlight. The deck was empty. Tools, charts, equipment, everything was still there. But every crew member was gone. Only she and Ellis remained. She felt her heart pound. Where did they go? Ellis didn't answer. He was staring into the distance. Look. Far on the horizon, 4 beams of light pierced the clouds, rising from the sea and disappearing into the sky. They pulsed in rhythm, one after another, in perfect sequence. Voss whispered. The currents have awakened. The voice returned one final time, echoing across the water. The cycle continues. And then the sea was calm again. The Orpheus drifted silently, caught between the horizon and the unknown. Voss looked down at her hands. Faint symbols had appeared on her skin, glowing with the same blue light as the frost. She didn't flinch. She simply closed her eyes and listened. The hum was still there, deep inside her heartbeat. The current wasn't gone. It had just moved into them. The world didn't notice at first. The ocean was too vast. The noise of civilization too loud to hear the quiet hum that began beneath it. But the current had already spread. Invisible, ancient, patient. It moved like thought through water, through cables, through air. And one by one, the others began to wake. Thousands of miles from where the Orpheus drifted, the North Atlantic shimmered under a moonless sky. A cargo vessel en route to Greenland reported a strange flicker beneath the waves, a pulse of light that followed the ship for nearly 20 minutes before vanishing without a trace. The captain tried to record it, but every electronic device on board failed at the exact same moment. Only the radar screen stayed alive, painting for perfect circles that rotated endlessly until power was restored. In the morning, the ocean was still, but those who stood on deck said the water felt aware. In Japan, off the coast of Okinawa, fishermen pulled in their nets only to find them fused together by a thin crystalline film. It wasn't ice, it was something else. Cool to the touch, humming faintly when brought close to metal. Scientists later confirmed it wasn't any known compound. The structure of the material was too perfect, like it had been printed by light itself. And then, in Chile, near the Atacama Desert, seismic sensors picked up a rhythmic vibration coming from far beneath the Pacific. It wasn't tectonic. It wasn't natural. It pulsed exactly every 42 seconds. The pattern matched the hum recorded by the Orpheus. Before contact was lost, the world's networks began to feel it next. Undersea. Data cables flickered. Satellites lost signal for fractions of a second, but long enough to make entire systems desynchronize. In Alaska, power grids went offline for 6 minutes, and when they came back, all system clocks displayed the same incorrect time. 4:04. 4 hours. 4 minutes. 4 circles. Some dismissed it as coincidence. Others didn't. Dr. Voss and Commander Ellis watched the news from the Orpheus's flickering control room. They had re-established partial communication, enough to receive fragmented transmissions from global networks. The voice from the depths was gone, but its presence lingered like static in their minds. The others are awake, Voss whispered. Ellis nodded, and they're not hiding anymore. He zoomed in on a satellite image of the Atlantic. Beneath the surface, faint but visible, 4 new geometric anomalies had appeared. Each exactly equidistant from the next, forming a ring that spanned nearly half the ocean. Each one is resonating at the same frequency, Voss said. Same as what we recorded before the blackout. Ellis leaned closer. It's a network. Not just that, she replied softly. It's a map. She pulled up another overlay, one showing ancient tectonic fault lines and lost land masses. The ring intersected perfectly with a single, forgotten name on an old oceanographic chart. Astara, an extinct plateau some believed was part of the Atlantis myth. You think they've been here before? Ellis asked. Voss didn't answer right away. Her eyes lingered on the glowing lines. Not before, she said finally. Steel. Still. For hours, they watched the data shift and pulse like a heartbeat. Somewhere beyond the edge of the screen, something vast was organizing itself. Then came the transmission. A soft tone, then a signal burst across every open channel. The same frequency, 42 hertz, encoded in a pattern that repeated 4 times. No one could trace its source. Every country, every satellite, every deep-sea station received it simultaneously. The message lasted exactly 42 seconds. When decoded, it formed a single image. 4 circles, intersecting, luminous, forming a symbol no one had ever seen but everyone somehow recognized. A symbol that looked both alien and ancient. Then the lights went out across half the Atlantic rim. For 6 hours, entire coastlines went dark. New York, Lisbon, Dakar, Recife, the world held its breath. Emergency channels were flooded with reports of strange blue lights over the water, of ships vanishing from radar, of waves that rose without wind and fell without sound. But then, as suddenly as it began, the power returned. Every digital clock blinked back to 4:04. In that stillness, something new appeared in the sky. Not a craft, not a meteor, but a formation. 4 beams of light rose from the ocean's horizon, each one reaching into the upper atmosphere. They connected, forming a faint lattice, visible only from orbit. Satellite footage confirmed it wasn't a projection. The light had structure, molecular density, measurable mass. Dr. Voss stared in awe. They're linking the currents together. A planetary grid. Ellis exhaled slowly. What happens when it's complete? She didn't answer. She couldn't. The hum returned, this time faint but global, heard through metal, through the earth itself, even through human skin. People everywhere described the same sensation, a vibration in the bones, steady, rhythmic, like the ocean breathing through them. In Iceland, a pilot reported seeing the northern lights change shape. Instead of their usual drifting ribbons, they formed 4 perfect circles of light over the polar cap, pulsing in unison with the hum. In Egypt, the sensors at the Great Pyramid detected electromagnetic anomalies, aligning with the same 42-second cycle. And deep beneath Antarctica, seismic readings indicated cavities opening in the ice. Symmetrical, circular, arranged like the 4 seals. It was no longer a mystery. The planet was responding. Back aboard the Orpheus, the ship's navigation systems flickered to life again, this time without command. The autopilot engaged, and the display showed a new set of coordinates far north of their current position. Voss leaned over the console. That's the Arctic. The magnetic pole. Ellis frowned. We're not equipped for that journey. The engines can't handle it. Before he could finish, the ship began to move, slowly at first, tense steadily. The sea around them glowed with a soft blue light as if unseen hands were guiding the vessel forward. We don't have a choice anymore, Voss said. It's calling us. They stood in silence as the Orpheus sailed into the mist, the light growing stronger beneath them. The sky flickered between night and day, as if time itself struggled to keep pace with the pulse. And far across the globe, in cities and deserts and mountains, others began to feel it too. A child in Norway woke from a dream, her eyes glowing faintly blue. A radio operator in Peru picked up voices, speaking in patterns instead of words. A monk in Tibet felt the earth vibrate beneath his temple, forming symbols in the sand. All around the world, people began to draw the same image for circles, intersecting, pulsing without knowing why. The current had reached them. It wasn't about ships anymore. It wasn't about discovery. It was about connection, an awakening written into the planet's oldest memory. By dawn, new anomalies appeared in the Pacific and the Indian Oceans. The pattern was now global, spanning every ocean basin and aligning perfectly with the Earth's magnetic grid. And then silence. The hum stopped. The lights faded. Every device returned to normal. The world tried to move on. But somewhere deep beneath the Atlantic, in the ruins of what was once the first current, something vast stirred and opened its eyes. Chapter 10. The Final Transmission. The world stood on the edge of silence. After the hum faded, the oceans grew unnaturally still. No waves, no storms, no wind. For the first time in centuries, the sea was calm enough to mirror the stars, as if the sky and the deep had merged into one endless reflection. In cities, people whispered that it was over. The lights, the signals, the strange global rhythm, all gone. But beneath that, relief lived something else. A waiting, a pause between heartbeats. On board the Orpheus, Commander Ellis hadn't slept in 2 days. The engines no longer obeyed him, but the ship moved anyway, drawn by an unseen current that pointed north, always north, toward the Arctic night. The air grew colder by the hour. The water darkened to ink. Even the stars began to fade behind a veil of low blue mist. Dr. Voss sat in the control room, staring at the static screen. For hours, it showed nothing until suddenly, a symbol flickered across it. 4 circles, then one in the center, glowing brighter with each pulse. "They've changed the pattern," she whispered. "It's no longer 4, it's 5. Ellis leaned over. "A new node, or a command," she murmured. "Something's initiating." The compass needle began to spin uncontrollably. Magnetic interference increased. The Orpheus hull trembled, as if resonating with something massive beneath it. Then, without warning, the water erupted in a column of light. So brilliant, it washed the horizon white. They shielded their eyes. When the glare faded, they saw a vast geometric structure emerging slowly from the ocean's surface. It wasn't metal. It wasn't stone. It looked alive, shifting between solid and liquid. A cathedral of light and sound that towered hundreds of meters high. At its base, the water churned with electric glow, forming symbols that rippled like language. "It's communicating," Voss said, voice trembling. Ellis nodded slowly. "But with who?" The ship's speakers crackled. A low tone filled the air, the same 42 Hz frequency they had heard before, but this time layered with faint harmonic voices. Not words. Not human. It wasn't a transmission meant for ears. It was for the mind. Voss clutched the console. Her pupils widened, reflecting the pulsing light. "They're showing me something," she whispered. "Memories. Not theirs, ours." Images flashed through her consciousness. Prehistoric skies lit with strange suns, continents forming and sinking, beings of light shaping oceans like clay. A civilization that didn't vanish, but descended into the deep, waiting for the right resonance to return. "They were never gone," she said. "They became part of the current. They became the planet's memory." Ellis could barely hear her over the rising hum. The Orpheus was vibrating, glowing faintly around the edges, as if merging with the light. The radio burst, alive again. Across every global frequency, the same sound played simultaneously. The final transmission. It wasn't a message of invasion or warning. It was a symphony, harmonic waves weaving across the Earth's magnetic field. Scientists around the world scrambled to decode it, but no data could explain it. The frequency was rewriting the field itself. In Cairo, the Great Pyramid resonated for the first time in recorded history. In Peru, Machu Picchu's stones emitted faint luminescence. In the Arctic, the aurora spread until it covered the entire sky, forming one vast circle of blue-white fire. The 5 points of light now covered every ocean basin, glowing brighter, aligning with the pulse. The Earth itself was responding like an instrument being tuned. Ellis shouted over the roar. "If this continues, it could destabilize." "It's not destruction," Voss said softly. "It's synchronization." She reached out to the screen. For a moment, her hand passed through the light, as if through water. Her voice trembled. "They're asking for connection, not conquest." And then the light enveloped them. The Orpheus lifted gently off the water's surface. Every gauge spun into chaos. Outside, the ocean flattened into a perfect mirror, reflecting the glowing lattice above. Ellis tried to speak, but no sound came out. The hum filled his chest, his mind, his blood. He saw what they wanted him to see. In the beginning, the planet had 2 kinds of life, one that grew on land and one that grew within it. The surface evolved flesh and bone, The deep evolved thought and resonance. When humans looked to the stars for gods, the true watchers were always below, waiting, guiding, adjusting. The currents were their network, the sea their memory. And now the surfaced world had grown loud enough, bright and oak, connected enough. To Hoyne, Tim. The Orpheus wasn't sinking, it was crossing. The water parted into a vast tunnel of light. The ship glided downward without resistance. Through the hull, Ellis saw impossible structures. Towers of crystal, slow spirals of glowing plankton, shaped like constellations. Entities drifting like clouds of thought. He realized they were surrounded not by creatures, but by consciousness itself. The ocean's living mind. A voice filled the space, not in sound but in pure understanding. The signal completes. The memory returns. You are not alone. Then everything dissolved. When Ellis opened his eyes again, he was lying on the deck. The sea was calm. The sky had returned to gray daylight. Dr. Voss was gone. Only her pendant remained, a small glass sphere that pulsed faintly with blue light. He stood slowly, scanning the empty horizon. The structure was gone, the current silent. But on the radio, one faint signal remained, a repeating message encoded in the same 42-second cycle. 4:04. The fifth circle awakened across the world. Strange phenomena continued. Fish migrated in perfect spirals. Compasses twitched north, even when nowhere near magnetic fields. People reported dreams of the deep, where voices called them by name. And somewhere far below, in the quiet black expanse, where no sunlight could reach, the current stirred once more, 5 rings spinning slowly, forming a spiral that reached upward like a question. The earth itself had spoken. The transmission was complete. But for those who could still hear the faint hum in the night, the story wasn't over. It was only beginning again. They say the sea is quiet now, that the signal has stopped. But if you listen closely in the deep hours before dawn, you can still hear it. A faint hum beneath the waves, steady as a heartbeat, patient as time itself. The Orpheus was never found. No debris, no crew, not even a ripple to mark where it vanished. But days later, across the world, the same tone began to echo through old radio bands. The one they called the fifth circle. Some believe it's just interference. Others say it's the sound of something waking, something ancient. Something not from the stars, but from the deep. And as the oceans fall silent again, one question remains. What happens when the next signal calls? And who will answer it? Because the story of the deep has never really ended. It's only waiting for the next frequency. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching. Remember, the ocean still calls from the deep.